Hello friends, how are you today? Well, I thought we could talk about the astrology energies. I'm laughing because as soon as the birds were totally quiet, and as soon as I started talking, the Canadian geese started up. Isn't that funny? They're happy, I guess, happy to talk about energy with me. So basically, what I wanted to say is you've probably felt the shift in energy. We're in the full moon period that started February 12th, and I wanted to talk about that and talk about, how these energies have shifted a bit and where it's going, because there's been a shift. And, it's so interesting because the full moon started with these huge waves of energy on the Schumann resonance. And so here's the full moon in Leo. And so it started with the courage of a lion. And we got this huge influx of energy. I want to show you the energies that have dominated the full moon. The asteroid Michelangelo is our creativity with high talent. Purely it's obvious. This creativity, it's even genius level. And it's from God. There's been a lot of talk about young geniuses in the media. Elon Musk is obviously clearly a genius who runs multiple companies somehow. There have been attacks, right, on these people, on their character or whatever. So it's interesting how mastery and wounding can go hand in hand, isn't it? And it's interesting to just think about, what does it take to reveal genius? What are the circumstances in which it develops, and what does it take to bring it forward, or to have the courage to bring it forward, or the capability to bring it forward, or the resources? I would say, look at where's your special talents, go for it. Figure out, what am I special at? What are my special talents? And we all have them. That's what scripture says. Well, the moon was in the 5th house for the full moon, okay? And it's at the 6th house for the full moon. So that's the house of work. It ruled the house of work because it was so close to the cusp. What I want to say is, when I'm talking about the houses, what I'm looking at is for the USA, for the land. I use Philadelphia, the Philadelphia chart, because that's where the Republic was founded. The land on which the Republic sits and where it was founded. I use that as how is America influenced. I don't use Washington, D.C., because we all know that's a bed of vipers. But the moon is also joy. We're so blessed in these energies, but it's basically a message about, what do you have joy doing for work? Because that's what we're going to be able to carry on the longest, do the best, then the most. Now, this is so cool, and this influence is still on and ongoing. The star for Archangel Michael, Aldeberan, and the planet Jupiter all been together in Gemini within 1 or 2 degrees of each other. It's almost like a super blessed time, because you have Jupiter, the asteroid that kind of represents God, and then Michael, who is like God, the embodiment of divine will, that energy, following divine will in your life, aligning with that is your protection. So he's the archangel of protection as well. He leads God's armies. So these are stunning energies right now, and they're very fortunate. And if things aren't going your way, what you could look at is, how am I protected in this moment? Because this is protection in a big way, and if things are going your way, maybe this is the wind at your back. It's really interesting because there are challenges, and that is that Sedna, the asteroid Sedna, is at 0 of Gemini it's been there for a while. And that brings up childhood woundings. It brings up, where have I been hurt? It brings up the inner child and where he or she is still suffering. And the big thing with Sedna is to learn to take care of the self, and then toss that baggage overboard. Leave it at the bottom of the ocean. Let the planet transmute it. Let Neptune transmute it in the great ocean, and allow yourself to rise up. And that's what Sedna does. She rises eventually off the ocean and becomes a fertility goddess of the ocean. And she helps sailors and provides them with nourishment and stuff. But there's something else going on in Gemini, and that's that the asteroid for the Dark Prince is at 29 degrees. The asteroid for Lucifer. And what does that mean? 29 degrees is a critical degree. So it's Where are you tempted to turn away from God, or to turn away from where your spiritual guidance says, or where do you get the impulse, right? Oh, I know this is the right thing for me, but then you don't do it for some reason. And so in each of those instances, when you bring your conscious attention to it and you turn towards divinity, you turn back around and go with what's coming through your heart from your soul, that's the antidote to this energy. And at 29 degrees, we get the blessings of turning around and heading back towards the way that God wants us to be, the truth of your own soul. You get all the blessings of that, as well as the pitfalls if you're in a place where you're struggling, right, to know yourself, to have a relationship with God. Then you may be experiencing the karma of that, but you can make a choice. And the karma is usually suffering, because when we turn away from God, when we don't know who we truly are, we're really in suffering. And there's always the next moment in which we can make a new choice. The other major influence has been North Node, Neptune, right next to each other in the very, very advanced degrees of Pisces. Well, all the big water, the big floods, that's a lot of this, but it's also stridentness. It's also psyops of religion. You're not religious if you do X, or you're in a cult, trying to get you to believe that you're in a cult, or maybe you really are in a cult and you need to disengage. All those things, because it's the fullness of the energy. That's the meaning of that. And it can also be great passion spiritually, great passion, because the North Node is just never-ending energy, but it could also be reptilian attack. Like, it could be an attack upon you spiritually. And so it really depends which of those resonate with you. It can also be where our soul wants to do something new spiritually. You see, it's because the extremes of the energy is included in the wholeness of the energy. And then we had something really interesting that's for this 2-week period, which is that there was a trine between the Dark Prince, Vitja, which is a warrior, and Haumea, which is birth, the goddess of birth, and she's retrograde, and the Dark Prince is retrograde. There's an energy here, and it's going to come to a head. I'm not going to talk about that today, but reclaiming the children, what's happened to the children, reclaiming your own inner child from his or her trauma that you've experienced in this lifetime or in others. And there's the concept here, because a trine is very favorable, that there's the opportunity to restore our faith. Maybe it's our faith in other humans. Maybe it's our faith in humanity. Maybe it's your faith in God. Maybe it's your faith that you're going to be okay, no matter what. And, Vitja right now is square Sedna, and that can also be, I see it as it's a warrior, but I could see it as a spiritual warrior, especially because it's in Pisces right now. It's an asteroid. And square Sedna, which is at 0 degrees, it's like Stockholm syndrome, because the inner child traumatized, and then there's this warrior who's just so strong and capable in square. That can be you finally having the energy to get out of these old traumas, or it could be Stockholm syndrome. I'm at the effect of the oppressor, and then you take on all the oppressor's points of view because you feel that that's safe, and that is an immature thing to do. It's a childish thing to do in a way. And so I think that we're seeing people who express points of view that clearly go against their best interest and are really of their enemy, but it's kind of sad. And you're also seeing information come out in this period about the hostages in the Middle East, and that's a very sad situation. I think that the return of living people, the return of the remains, and the desecration also, that's the energy of this trine. Okay, so it has its positive expressions, but there's also the negative as well in the wholeness of the expression. So for this period of the full moon that we're still in, the sun was with Ceres and Mercury. So there's a lot of talking. It's talking about new things. Mercury was in Aquarius. I think what you're seeing here is giving voice to the voiceless. Giving voice to the voiceless, the restoration of the voice, because there were squares here with Uranus. Healing of truth, the fact that we are learning the truth, and that is healing. that energy is present. And it's interesting because Uranus is opposing Metis for this period. Metis at 22 degrees, that's a very intense degree. Uranus at 23, the danger's over. So it's like Metis is informing Uranus. Okay, watch out for this. Uranus flips things to be in better alignment with divine will. Sorry, I had to get the thing here. So then the next thing is that it's not just Metis. Metis was with all the goddesses. I often say that the goddesses provide the context in the astrology chart, and then the male planets provide the action. But you have all of these female goddesses, and they're all like talking to Uranus. And then Uranus in Taurus, Hygeia was at 0 of Taurus. So it's almost like Uranus is also with the goddess Hygeia, health and wellness. You had the clan mother, Juno, relevant here. You had Vesta, the goddess who tends the sacred hearth, Hecate, who's the trifold feminine, Haumea, who rules childbirth, and Lilith, the badass bitch. They're all putting their 2 cents in with Uranus. And so the upsets that happen, or the surprises, this is all, in my view, this is all the goddesses across from Uranus in opposition in the sign, mostly in that sign that's opposing Scorpio. And no one's going to know what's happening because the goddesses are in Scorpio. So it's between the individual and God. There's a lot of hidden. But things are turned toward their highest good. There's a lot of energy for this because there's a grand square. Here's Uranus, Metis, and then the moon with the sun and another goddess, Ceres, and Mercury. So we're healing the truth, we're learning the truth, and it's pretty amazing. There's one more thing, which is that the energies for the full moon were in a cup, okay, but they had a square, sort of closing the cup, or maybe it was opening the cup, or maybe it was determining who gets what's in the cup. So opportunities, these 2 weeks, there's more of a refinement of a discernment over who gets the energy. Or maybe it's a pouring out onto the land. It's a pouring out for certain individuals, and now we see the announcement of the potential tax refund from Doge. So, this is a lot of energy, and it's actually, there's some really, really good news. But I wanted to say, where the planets are now, so we're the first week into the full moon period, the near-term planets, the sun, Mercury, and the moon, they've all moved to the lower single-digit degrees. So they're all more in relationship with Venus. Before, they were all in relationship at the full moon. These inner planets were, and I'm calling the sun an inner planet, but they were all in relationship with the spiritual energy, the North Node, Uranus, even Mars. But now they're all around the same degree as Venus. And so now that we're a week into it, we're looking at, well, what do I value? And I want to talk about what I value. And they're also close to the degree of Pluto. So we're also seeing the bare truth, ugly truth, but also the potential elevation of the truth. That's what the energy is for the land of the country that we're in, if you're from the USA. If not, then the energy still applies, but potentially to different houses. Maybe not, maybe so. But it's very exciting. We're in such a fortunate time, and there's something I wanted to say, which I've been saying to people around me, which is I didn't know it would be so amazing. I didn't know there would be so much fun. I didn't know there would be so many positive surprises with Pluto's move into Aquarius.